Hey there, folks. We are about a minute early for the LinkedIn Live. Just wanted to say hi to everybody and see what's going on in the space. I am not necessarily seeing it live. I hope folks are seeing it live on the other side. It says it's live on our end. Although I do see a little viewer icon, so that gives me hope that perhaps somebody is out there watching and listening. And if you are, we hope that you're having a good week. It is Wednesday, it is hump day, and here we are trying to make it happen with AI, right? Heather's in one of my favorite cities, my hometown actually, outside of Boston, Massachusetts. So I'm pretty excited to be chatting with her today. And it now says it is the top of the hour, so I'm going to do the official let's get started. So with that, I'm Maribel Lopez. I'm the founder and principal analyst at Lopez Research. I think most of you know that. This is the first of a LinkedIn Live series based on AI. We had a lot of good success with the AI with Maribel Lopez podcast, which is still going, and we decided that we wanted to take this format to LinkedIn Live as well. So welcome to Exploring the Frontiers of AI Governance. This is a chat with IBM's Heather Gentile. Hey, Heather, how you doing?
Hi.
So Heather is the director of watsonx Governance, and as part of IBM's data and AI software division, she focuses on opportunities to apply AI to solutions in governance, in risk, in compliance. She works with organizations to enable responsible, transparent, and explainable AI, something that I think you all know that I'm really passionate about. Many of you know I've been taking look at the space for a while, and I think that it's good for organizations to look at ethics and governance in 2024. When I founded the AI with ML podcast a few years ago, we focused heavily on this topic, but frankly, organizations just weren't ready. And now, ready or not, it's time for us to do it. So I'm going to jump in and ask Heather to weigh in on some of these topics. So I guess to start, there are many parts of delivering a successful AI strategy. And we talk to a lot of companies. We see so many of them are focused on the tooling, the infrastructure, the models. What do you think companies are missing?
So I think based on what I see globally, it really needs to be people, process, and technology. For years, many companies have embraced predictive ML in support of their AI strategies. But at the time, these initiatives really supported individual business units. They were supported by IT and data science and really ran in their own silos. Because of the innovation opportunity with generative AI, but also the risk and honestly the unknowns because it's so new, we see organizations taking the opportunity to align their AI governance strategies more at the enterprise level. So this is taking the time to do a maturity assessment of where your organization is at, making sure that the right stakeholders are included so that as you're laying forth that AI governance framework, you've got the individual perspectives across the organization that are going to reflect your culture and your values as a company. And that's really what empowers responsible AI adoption.
I think we've heard so much recently with deepfakes and other things. And also there's a lot of discussion about AI in board level discussions at this point about what's happening with data. How do we prevent our data from leaking? How do we protect our brands? So I think this topic is really very important for organizations. And perhaps, we need to look at a couple of different aspects of this. So obviously, given that you are part of watsonx Governance, you spent a long time looking at governance strategies. So in your opinion, what do you think should be included in a governance strategy today? Maybe talk about the attributes or the components of it.
Yeah, so in order to have a complete governance strategy, you really need to look at the AI for business goals and think about it from a risk perspective. Because if your business strategy is being driven by AI, that's where I go back to the stakeholders. You want to have representation from, definitely the CISO and the CTO perspectives, but legal, risk and compliance as well. Bringing in ethical values is mission critical to making sure it aligns with the company's purpose. But even the HR perspective, if you think about it, a year ago is really when ChatGPT went mainstream. And a lot of organizations at the time were starting to embrace AI. But they were thinking about, the foundation layer, that data governance layer, and internal use cases, how they would graduate their adoption of AI. Suddenly, employees got access to this easy to use interface, and it's AI is part of the culture, and it's, helping their own productivity, helping them improve what they're able to do in their daily jobs. So we saw organizations reacting very quickly to now write employee policies and procedures around how AI could be used, rolling out training programs for employee awareness. I mean, it's really akin to what happened with data privacy, where responsible AI needs to be part of every employee's job. So while the opportunity is exciting, they have to balance that with risk management and an informed view, controls of what employees are actually doing. And so I think as a best practice, the AI governance program needs to be constantly evolving, because from that we did see, vast opportunity with generative AI models, third party, providers putting models on the market with different types of assurances, the access to open source models. So there's a lot of options out there, and it's governance that helps to ensure, are you using the right options for your organization, and does it align with the risk associated with that use case?
I mean, I suppose it should go without saying that every organization is different, right? So they're going to have different risk profiles. There are some things that are universal across organizations. We talk a lot about data leakage. We talk a lot about trying to figure out how you can use multiple models and make sure that you're doing all that in an ethical, responsible way. I liked one of the things that you were talking about, because I think it's really important to AI, and in a lot of aspects of AI strategy, I'm not sure if people are leveraging this. And when you think about it, AI is a learning, evolving thing. So just like that, each aspect of your AI strategy needs to be learning and evolving. And it reminds me a bit of the software development lifecycle, right? You have to kind of keep it going all the time. You have to go back and iterate and make something happen. And I don't think we have that level of practice and cadence in organization. So I love where you're going with that. And Jeff, thanks for joining. Jeff's talking about supercomputers. It's definitely a game changer for what we're seeing in terms of being able to leverage AI. And thanks for coming out, folks, this morning. Okay, so we talked a little bit about what's going on with a governance strategy. One of the things that we see being pretty challenging with a governance strategy is that companies are working, the buyers are working with so many different companies for the various pieces of an AI stack. So I'm wondering, how do you achieve governance when there are that many parts to the AI stack that people are looking at? Difficult, hard, impossible?
I think part of the challenge there too is that AI model adoption isn't new. So we work with many clients who have been on this journey for years. We've had AI governance technology in market for a long time. And part of what organizations want to be able to do is leverage their technology strategy that they have in place today. And as we're talking about maturing AI governance programs, the opportunity there is to solve for gaps, optimize processes that you have today to work a little better, and really move along the AI governance maturity curve. And so an open toolkit and flexibility for technology to be able to plug in and work with others is key. At IBM, we have a huge focus in our ecosystem, and that includes partners like AWS, Google, and Microsoft. And with watsonx Governance, as you mentioned earlier, that's the portfolio where I focus at IBM. Our open strategy allows us to govern any open source or third-party model on any AI application. And so we're not advocating a rip and replace. You don't have to give up investments that you've made over the years, especially if things are working great with your current workbench. And honestly, from the risk and compliance perspective, the best practice is to govern with technology that's independent from which you build. So there's a lot of opportunity here if you take the approach of looking at, governance similar to, as you mentioned, any technology. You want it to be independent, you want it to complement and strengthen existing processes. And that's where organizations have the opportunity to get a lot of advantage and really strengthen their AI governance programs.
I love that. I love the concept of being able to be open, but also working with what you already have, because we have already made investments. And just like any other tech stack, you want to preserve your investments if they make sense for you. You also want to manage transitions if they don't make sense for you. So either way, that's good. Now, AI is a really rapidly evolving space. And one of the things that's been a little lagging in certain countries is regulation, but we can't say this about the EU. So
Right.
the latest version of the EU Act just passed. I'm pretty excited about this. And I basically wanted to get your take on how you see this EU AI Act basically impacting governance at a global scale, because we all know that we've seen GDPR and other regulatory frameworks out of various countries sort of impact the global landscape. So what are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, I think that's a very, very timely point. And it does remind me of the impact that GDPR had, where other countries took the opportunity to model their own legislation after that comprehensive regulation. And we're certainly seeing this here. With the EU AI Act, it's probably the most prescriptive piece of regulation at a large global level. Even within the United States, at state and local levels, we're seeing models popping up. So I think countries are anticipating that the guidance coming out of the EU AI Act can be replicated. And again, similar format to GDPR. It's a delicate balance because regulators don't want to stifle innovation, but you have to provide actionable guidance that organizations can actually execute to in order to be confident that they're in compliance. And the challenge previous to this act was that there was a lot of umbrella legislation that was more aspirational. Explainability is important, privacy is important, but they didn't have requirements you could break out as to how you could get there. And the over 265 pages of detail that the EU AI Act provides, breaks down requirements for model providers like IBM and the other hyperscalers, model adopters. So that's any organization bringing AI into their business to support their business strategy, and even requirements for regulators. So having that level of detail and clear guidance, I think, is something that the industry has been aspiring towards. And now the challenge really is, how do you pair that with effective controls and leverage those controls for other regulations that may have a similar model in order to effectively and efficiently be in compliance as more guidance and regulation comes your way.
Now, I know that these are LinkedIn Lives, and we don't want them to be super long because it's difficult to do a super long LinkedIn Live. It becomes a webinar. But if anybody has any questions, we're happy to field any questions that you might have. And I am going to ask Heather another question, but I guess my one piece of color commentary is, well, all the things we see going on with AI deep fakes, and we've seen some recent legislation in the US around AI. I do think it's important for the US government to sort of step up its efforts and move faster than they have in the past. And I'm personally hoping that the EU AI Act basically helps them copy or at least think about some of the framework that we should be having here. And there's a question from Jeff. What can we take from privacy and security governance and apply to AI? Any thoughts on that?
The immediate thing that pops into my mind is data governance and information architecture being the foundation layer to having confidence in that model.
Mm-hmm.
Because historically, this is a place where organizations have always struggled. So being confident in the data that supports the use case is really the first step to explainability and success of AI model adoption. They really go in hand, And that's similar to what we saw with privacy, right? You're protecting the rights of that data. Only the right people have the right access to it. PII is protected, and you're not collecting more information that you needed to. It was an evolution here at IBM where we were leveraging governance technology with a focus on data privacy. And when some of the local regulations came our way, like the New York HR Hiring Act, our chief privacy office became client zero for IBM. And they extended their use of our own technology to manage AI governance requirements for that local law. And it really built on the work, the foundational work they had done from a data privacy perspective. And we see that with our clients as well.
Awesome. Now, I actually had popped up a question from Natalie and it went away. But Natalie was basically asking, actually, we're just going to pop it right back up again, about implications for the SMB market that might not have the skills of the structure. I've got a thought or two, but Heather, do you have a thought on how we might be able to apply this to organizations that don't have a rich AI skill set?
Yeah, absolutely. We see this as a global challenge because I think in the US, we're a little bit more advanced in organizations with access to data science talent, for example. So there's a couple perspectives on this. One is, having access both to be able to explore the potential of AI, but also govern your use of AI, leveraging SaaS environments, right? So in addition to other talent challenges, you don't have a huge layer of IT infrastructure that's precluding you from participating. So that's definitely one. So being able to embrace, hybrid cloud or cloud methods of accessing either the AI itself or the governance, that's been part of IBM's strategy where we're SaaS first. And then the other interesting thing I've seen globally is the approach that regulators are taking, particularly in Singapore. Not only did they issue guidance, but they provide a sandbox for businesses there to experiment with AI, as well as consider how the AI they're experimenting with should be governed. So I think there's a lot of ways to enable SMBCs. It just has to be, part of the strategy.
Awesome. Yeah. There's actually another interesting question from Tim Crawford about how do we provide guidance to enterprises? You read through the AI Act. Yes, I agree, Tim. It can be incredibly complicated. Any thoughts, Heather, on how you're helping guide organizations through a pretty challenging and interesting time?
Yeah, we've been studying the EU AI Act for a long time, and I think one of the things that is the biggest challenge as an organization tries to understand the applicability and their own responsibilities if they're, subject to this law is how ready am I to comply? And so one of the things that we've done with Watson X Governance is actually create a risk assessment questionnaire that takes the user through all of the pieces applicable to them based on where they operate and the type of business that they are, to highlight where there may be gaps. For example, there's a whole section about the use of generative AI models and the controls that you have in place around your implementations. Some of those are quantifiable, others are more qualitative. But what you would come out of with that risk assessment is, have I thought of controls specific to generative AI models? And we basically took that approach through all of the different areas so that an organization can quickly see, well, I need to focus attention here because maybe I don't have these requirements built into my current AI governance program, and need to shore up controls to be sure that, we're managing the risk appropriately. So doing something like a risk assessment early on will help focus the work that needs to be done to both understand the requirements and be ready for compliance.
All right, we have one last question, and it is from Jeff. And I know that there are different groups in IBM that work on this. I don't know if this is part of your peer review, but certainly explainable AI, ethics, and governance seem to go together. So I respect the question of can we ever get to explainable AI? And from your perspective, Heather, where do you think we are with the tooling to allow that?
Yeah, so there's a lot of different things that feed into explainable AI. One is aligning the implementation of AI with the use case. And from an ethical perspective, should this use case even be approved? And if it's something the organization wants to pursue, is AI the right approach to meeting the use case? So we really start by embedding governance as an audit trail at the time the use case is requested by the business, and then carrying it through the engineering and build process as models are compared, which is the right based on its performance, ROI considerations, the ongoing cost to support the use case, and then proactive monitoring at runtime. Is your model still behaving the time as it was at the time it was selected? And so it's really that combination of applying governance behind the scenes proactively in every step of the process that would allow the organization to explain to a regulator, this is why I'm confident in my adoption of this model. Explainability within the model is, however, a bigger challenge, especially with open source. You don't know what data the model is trained on. If you're partnering with a third party, what visibility is the third party giving you to the creation of that model, and what assurances are they giving you about the way the model should function, and what if something goes wrong? So there's a lot of business level considerations that also need to flow into your AI governance program and what your strategy for adoption is going to be.
Awesome. So I'm just going to post up a couple comments that you can see here. It's one of the commentary from Tim about what might be beneficial. Natalie is interested in understanding if what you just mentioned, that risk assessment, was a free resource or is it part of client engagements?
So today it's part of client engagements through our POC process. You can sign up for a demo or a conversation right on IBM.com to do that type of a risk assessment. We are presently working on a free tool that provides some of the risk assessment considerations, which will be soon available on our website. So anyone will be able to have a look at the approach that we've taken. So multiple options out there if you search on watsonx governance from IBM.
Coming soon. I'll post some links in this thread after that might be helpful. This Tim thanking you for talking about how AI might not be used for everything. I totally agree with that. And we also talked about how the black box models don't need to be used for everything. You can sometimes get the same or similar accuracy and performance with other models. Thanks for joining, Joe. It's been a pleasure to hear your thoughts and comments. And yes, AI is evolving all the time. So with that, I am going to thank Heather for her time and attention. And thank you all for showing up, and look forward to talking with you all again on many AI topics. Cheers.
Thank you, Maribel.